If there was a single word to describe the state of Marvel Studios right now, it would be chaos. Get ready for a jaw-dropping revelation as we dive headfirst into the seismic shockwaves currently shaking up the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Variety has just dropped a bombshell report exposing a maelstrom of unpredictability, questionable decisions, and work environments that defy all expectations, all of which are culminating the problems we are seeing on screen today and tearing apart the very fabric of the MCU as we know it. The very foundation of the MCU is trembling. In this video, we're dissecting every explosive detail from the Variety article, sharing our reactions, and most importantly, charting a course to mend the fractures. Stick around until the end of this video, guys, because we're not just here to spill the beans, we're here to offer solutions. Marvel fans, you're in for a ride, and we've got a lot to unravel. There's no time to waste here, let's get right into it. Brilliant piece over at Variety written up by Tatiana Siegel titled Crisis at Marvel, Jonathan Majors Backup Plans, The Marvel's Reshoots, Reviving Original Avengers, and more issues revealed. So here we go, guys. This past September, a group of Marvel creatives, including studio chief Kevin Feige, assembled in Palm Springs for the studio's annual retreat. Most years, the vibe would have been confident, even cocky, given how the premier superhero brand, owned by Disney since 2009, has remade the entertainment business in its image. But this occasion was angst-ridden. Everyone at Marvel was reeling from a series of disappointments on screen, a legal scandal involving one of its biggest stars, and questions about the viability of the studio's ambitious strategy to extend the brand beyond movies into streaming. The most pressing issue to be discussed at the retreat was what to do about Jonathan Majors, the actor who had been poised to carry the next phase of the MCU, but instead is headed to a high-profile trial in New York later this month on domestic violence charges. The actor insists that he is the victim, but the damage to his reputation and the chance he could lose the case has forced Marvel to reconsider its plans to center the next phase of its interlocking slate of sequels, spin-offs, and series around Major's villainous character, Kang the Conqueror. At the gathering in Palm Springs, executives dissect backup plans, including pivoting to another comic book adversary like Doctor Doom. And guys, look, we've been wanting to see Doctor Doom for quite some time now, even the Fantastic Four, of course. But do you think that we should go ahead and pivot away from Kang and get right into Doctor Doom after everything that we've already started at this point? Continuing with the article, but making any shift would carry its own headaches. Majors was already a big presence in the MCU, including as the scene-stealing antagonist in February's Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. And he has been positioned as the franchise's next big thing in this season of Loki, particularly in the season finale, which airs on November 9th and sets up Kang as the star of the 5th Avengers film in 2026. It sure sounds like Kang is going to be at the forefront here, and Marvel needs to make a tough decision. Marvel is truly f***ed with the whole Kang angle, says one top dealmaker who has seen the final Loki episode, and they haven't had an opportunity to rewrite until very recently because of the WGA strike, but I don't see a path to how they move forward with him. I mean, and to me that does seem a little bit extreme. You are innocent until proven guilty. Yeah, there's a lot of evidence building up against Jonathan Majors. If he is indeed innocent, I do see a way for them to move forward with him. But as this is playing out, I feel like Marvel should probably have a plan in place in case things start to go towards the negative. Beyond the bad press for Majors, the brain trust at Marvel is also grappling with the November release of The Marvels, a sequel to the 2019's blockbuster Captain Marvel that has been plagued with lengthy reshoots and now appears likely to underwhelm at the box office. This is all an unprecedented turn of fortune for a company that has enjoyed a nearly uninterrupted string of hits ever since it started independently producing its movies with 2008's Iron Man. That wildly profitable run culminated in the $2.8 billion success of 2019's Avengers Endgame, a high watermark for the studio that has earned nearly $30 billion over 32 films. And think about those numbers for a second. No studio in Hollywood has done anything like this. It's been quite extraordinary to see, and it's just come raveling apart here over the last few years. It's just disheartening to see. Replicating that kind of phenomenon is never easy. However, the source of Marvel's current troubles can be traced back to 2020. That's when the COVID pandemic ushered in a mandate to help Disney stockpile with an endless torrent of interconnected Marvel content for the studio's fledgling streaming platform, Disney+. According to the plan, there would never be a lapse in superhero fare, with either a film in theaters or a new television series streaming at any given moment. And thinking back in 2020, whenever that was initially announced, guys, I mean, we were all head over heels for joy. We were so pumped up, excited, could not wait to see what Marvel was going to be bringing to the forefront on Disney+, culminating with the movies as well. We thought it was going to be absolutely incredible. But instead, it's led to what I believe has become studio fatigue, audience fatigue, as well as just content saturation. But the ensuing tsunami of spandex proved to be too much of a good thing.
Spandex. Everything. Spandex.
And the demands of churning out so much programming taxed the Marvel apparatus. Moreover, the need to tease out an interwoven storyline over so many desperate shows, movies, and platforms created a muddled narrative that baffled viewers. And that's just it too. You have all this interconnectivity with every single one of these movies, and they did such a good job with the first few phases. And once they moved it over to Disney+, I think they forgot to realize, hey, this is all gonna need to be interconnected as well. And it's just become kind of a mess. The Marvel machine was pumping out a lot of content. Did it get to the point where it was just too much and they were just burning people out on superheroes? It's possible, says Wall Street analyst Eric Handler, who covers Disney. The more you do, the tougher it is to maintain quality. They tried experimenting with breaking in some new characters like Shang-Chi and the Eternals with mixed results. With budgets as big as these, you need home runs. The Marvels, which opens in theaters on November 10th, will struggle to get the ball past the infield, at least by Marvel's outside standards. The movie, which cost $250 million, sees Brie Larson reprising her role as Captain Marvel, is tracking to open $75 million to $80 million, far below the $185 million Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness token domestically in its debut weekend last year. Narrated by Nia DaCosta, The Marvels unites Larson's heroine with two superpowered allies, Teyonah Parris' Monica Rambeau, introduced back in 2021 in the Disney Plus series WandaVision, and Iman Vellani's Kamala Khan, first seen in the 2022 series Ms. Marvel. But instead of seamlessly building on the success of Captain Marvel, this movie instead resulted in 4 weeks of reshoots to bring coherence to a tangled storyline. Oh boy, here we go. We already have yellow flags for Ms. Marvel before the movie even premieres. Guys, this is a trend that has been continuing with multiple Marvel movies and shows over the past few years. Then eyebrows were raised again when DaCosta began working on another film while The Marvels was still in post-production. The filmmaker moved to London earlier this year to begin preparing for Tessa Thompson's drama, Hedda. If you're directing a $250 million movie, it's kind of weird for the director to leave a few months to go, says a source familiar with the production. And me personally, I've never heard of anything like this, a director leaving in the middle of production, in middle of post-production reshoots. It's almost like she just, it sounds good, it looks good to me, just do what you need to do to finish it off and make it look good at the end of the day, and just moved right along. Have you ever seen anything like this or heard anything like this? I certainly haven't. That's extremely unprofessional in my view, and it just sounds like to me that she knows that this movie could be a train wreck. The Marvels has seen its release date moved back twice too, once to snap pieces with Quantumania, which was deemed further along, and again when its debut shifted from July to November to give filmmakers more time to tinker. But that extra time didn't necessarily help. In June, Marvel, which traditionally only solicits feedback from Disney employees and their friends and families, took the uncharacteristic step of holding a public screening in Texas. The audience gave the film middling reviews. But Marvel has never been in the business of being average. Kevin's real superpower, his genius, has always been in post-production and getting his hands on movies and making sure that they finish strongly, the source adds. These days, he's spread thin. And guys, he's spread thin because there's so many damn projects that he has to be keeping an eye on. I mean, all the Disney Plus projects, all the MCU movies coming to theaters. This man doesn't have any time for himself. Kevin Feige isn't the only person showing signs of strain. Marvel's entire VFX battalion, including staffers and vendors, is struggling to keep pace with the never-ending stream of productions. This past February, when the credits rolled at the world premiere of Quantumania, shock rippled through the Regina Village Theater in Westwood over some shoddy CGI. Quote, there were at least 10 scenes where visual effects had been added at the last minute and were out of focus, says one veteran power broker who was there. It was insane. I've never seen something like that in my entire career. Everyone was talking about it. Even the kids of executives were talking about it. And you guys have talked about it many times during my watch parties and countdown streams of how shoddy the VFX team has looked. Something is just amiss here. To me, it just seems like projects are just being rushed and pushed out to production, i.e. us, as quickly as possible. The schedule swap with the Marvels had left the Ant-Man sequel in a squeeze, pushing up its post-production schedule by 4.5 months. Marvel films are known for coming down to the wire, given Feige's ability to foam the runway and land a plane that way, says one executive familiar with how the company operates. But this level of unfinished work was unprecedented and would be noted in scathing reviews when the tentpole with the $200 million budget opened 11 days after the premiere. And critics weren't the only ones dismayed. Fed up with 14 days and no overtime, Marvel VFX workers voted unanimously to unionize in September, sparking an industry-wide trend. The year 2023 was the straw that broke the camel's back, says a former Marvel Studios VFX assistant coordinator, Anna George, who appeared before the Congressional Labor Caucus on October 19th to testify about the studio's untenable deadlines and working conditions. The pay and long hours at Marvel were the reason we had to start our unionization process there. The conditions were completely unsustainable. Disney's top brass, including newly returned CEO Bob Iger, was said to be apoplectic about Marvel's VFX troubles. 1 month after the Quantumania premiere debacle, the guillotine fell on Victoria Alonso, who oversaw the studio's physical production, post-production, VFX, and animation. While the reason cited for her abrupt firing was her unauthorized role as an executive producer on Oscar-nominated film Argentina in 1985, insiders say that Disney was incensed that quality control on its Marvel productions was plummeting, particularly on the ever-expanding TV front. The VFX logjam had been evident for some time, with some final effects, such as Disney Plus series as WandaVision and She-Hulk Attorney at Law, inserted after their streaming debuts. That Alonso was busy promoting her art house project while Rome burned certainly didn't sit well with Disney's leadership. Look guys, we're all adults here. If you're working and committed on one project and working and committed on another project, look, you're just gonna have to work out your schedules with the project you're working on first before you go ahead and move on to your next one. Like, you can't just abandon projects and then fix them on the fly after they've been released. That may work in the video game world and the software world, but in the entertainment industry, hell no, you got another thing coming. There is no way that that is sustainable, because these folks are watching these shows as they release. They're not going back and necessarily watching them again unless they thoroughly enjoyed them. They're gonna miss all of these fixes that were implemented. But some internal sources suggest Alonso was a scapegoat and point to the She-Hulk VFX issues as a symptom of deeper rot, namely a lack of oversight on script development. Guys, look, we did She-Hulk the Countdown Watch Party. I mean, the show was absolutely abysmal. We had a fantastic time hanging out, and I adored every single one of those events that we did. But we know, both of us know, deep down, that She-Hulk was not a good show. It was not a good show. It was a mess. A disaster, to be frank. In the original arc of She-Hulk, a flashback of star Tatiana Maslany's transformation into her Hulk character didn't take place until episode 8, the penultimate episode. But after Marvel's Brain Trust watched footage, it realized that the scene needed to happen in the pilot episode so that audiences could see more of the character's backstory early. That meant that the VFX team was tasked with fixing the mess in post-production. Normally that wouldn't be a big deal, but this post-production was just such a mess and a debacle that it just all came crumbling down. And you combine that with some of the questionable lines within the script, and it just all made for a bad show overall, you guys. Quote, the so-called bad VFX we see was because of the half-baked scripts, says one person involved with She-Hulk. That is not Victoria, that is Kevin. And even above Kevin, those issues should be addressed in pre-production. The timeline is not allowing the Marvel executives to sit with the material. All the while, Marvel was bleeding money, with a single episode of She-Hulk costing, get this guys, more than $25 million, dwarfing the budget of a final season episode of HBO's Game of Thrones, but without a similar bang. The August 2022 series premiere at the El Capitan Theater foreshadowed what was to come 6 months later at the Quantumania Bow. The She-Hulk special effects were out of focus in multiple scenes. There are signs that the flood of product is leading people to tune out. Quote, I'm not prepared to call it a permanent fail, but based on the numbers that go with Marvel podcasts, Marvel-based articles, friends who do Marvel-based video coverage, all of these numbers are significantly down, says Joanna Robinson, co-author of the New York Times bestseller, The MCU, The Reign of Marvel Studios, who is a writer and podcaster at The Ringer. The quality is suffering. In 2009, at the peak, if you put Marvel Studios in front of something, people were like, oh, that brand means quality. The association is no longer the case because there have been so many projects that felt half-baked and undercooked. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is called a tragedy. As public criticism mounts, Feige is pulling the plug on scripts and projects that aren't working. Case in point, the Blade reboot. With Mahershala Ali signed on for the eponymous role of a vampire, things look promising for a 2023 release date. But the project has gone through at least 5 writers, you guys, 2 directors, 1 shutdown, 6 weeks before production. This is before production has even started. Those things have all happened. All of those things. And we haven't even hit production yet. This is not good. This is not how Hollywood is supposed to work. One person familiar with the script permutations says that the story at one point morphed into a narrative led by women and filled with life lessons. Blade was regulated to the 4th lead, a bizarre idea considering that the studio had a 2-time actor on board. What the? Are you freaking kidding me right now? Why would you do something like this? All you need to do is stick with the story of Blade and implement it within the MCU. Guys, I'm gonna get a little political here. And look, I don't talk politics much on my channel, and a lot of you probably tune into my channel so you can avoid that. So I totally get it. If you don't want to hear it, feel free to skip to this point of the video. But I gotta say this, the wokeness in Disney has gotta stop. It needs to stop, guys. Look, at the end of the day, Disney has a huge audience of many different niches. It has a pride audience, it has a transgender audience, a heterosexual audience, all of the above. It has everyone. At the end of the day, you don't really need to necessarily push an agenda within a film whenever you already hold control of that niche. You already have that audience. I can kind of understand the expanding of that audience, but again, most people that I know love Disney for who they are as they were growing up with them, not necessarily of what they have become. That being said, you want to have inclusion. I get that. I totally get that 100%, and there's nothing wrong with that. But in my viewpoint, and in my opinion, don't change the story to push across an agenda that you have as a company to become successful. That's where you're going to face the backlash. I hope I didn't offend anybody there, but I had to set the record straight with that. Happily to discuss my points on that down in the comment section below, but let's get back into the article here. Amid reports that Ali was ready to exit over to script issues, Feige went back to the drawing board and hired Michael Green, the Oscar-nominated writer of Logan, to start anew. Speculation around town is that the studio is looking to make the film, now slated for 2025, on a budget less than $100 million, a deviation with Marvel's big spending strategy. So there it is, they've gone ahead and lowered the risk here. They already have the Oscar-nominated actor. There's a low risk here, and if the movie does well, it's an easy win. It should be an easy win. With Bob Iger publicly acknowledging the downside of a Marvel TV glut that diluted focus and attention, the keepers of the comic book empire are considering some dramatic moves. And here it is, guys. This is the absolute bombshell. Sources say there have been talks to bring back the original gang for an Avengers movie. This would include reviving Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man and Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow, both of whom of course were killed off in Avengers Endgame. But the studio hasn't yet committed to the idea. If it were able to bring back those actors, it wouldn't come cheap. Sources say that Downey Jr.'s upfront salary for Iron Man 3 was around $25 million alone. I mean, this might solve some of your problems, but it's not necessarily gonna fix it. You gotta have a good story. You gotta have good VFX. You know, like, I don't know if they get it. I just don't know. Will that solve Marvel's Majors problem? When the Quantumania actor was arrested back in March, Disney executives insisted that they could afford to play a wait-and-see game, given the Avengers: The Kang Dynasty wasn't expected to begin shooting until early 2024. But then Majors was dropped in a quick succession by his publicists and managers. In April, other alleged domestic violence victims of Majors began cooperating with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. Then, ahead of a key hearing in October, media outlets, including the Variety here, obtained a court filing that referenced a police incident in London involving Majors that led his ex-girlfriend to seek medical attention. Making matters even stickier, the ex-girlfriend also worked on Quantumania as a movement coach, and the London incident took place while Majors was shooting season 2 of Loki. On October 25th, a New York judge denied Majors' motion to dismiss the case, which ensures that the actor will stand trial in late November. His legal team is attempting to keep some material in the case sealed. Wow. This spells bad bombing for Jonathan Majors if this is in fact proven to be true. And listen, look, if that ends up being the case, Disney might want to go ahead and look to have somebody else play the role as Kang. A studio source notes that regardless of the actor's legal issues, Marvel already had considered moving away from Majors-led phase because of the box office performance of Quantumania, which will struggle to make a profit. It gave people pause, given that Quantumania didn't exactly stick the landing, the source says. To my point here, recasting Majors is also an option, as Feige did when he replaced Terrence Howard in Iron Man 2 with Don Cheadle. In fact, Marvel isn't afraid to change direction even after making splashy announcements. Armor Wars was the first unveiled as a series and is now being developed as a feature, while the studios push to adapt the comic book Inhumans into a feature film generated headlines but is now dormant. Still, there was one bright spot in 2023, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which became Marvel's biggest draw of the year in 2023 with $845 million generated worldwide. The fact that it was directed by James Gunn, the guy now running the rival DC studios, was lost on no one. With Marvel, it used to be as close as a guarantee as you could get, says a box office analyst for ComScore. so going all in on the budgets made sense. Guardians 3 was a bit overlooked in how successful it was, but that it had James Gunn and Chris Pratt, and I think that the star power is becoming more important. Then there was Quantumania with $476 million. Anything under $500 million is viewed as a disappointment, and these overreaching expectations are a result of so much success over the years. The key to reinvigorating Marvel may lie with the superhero arsenal that Disney acquired during its 2019 purchase of 21st Century Fox. The deal that brought several blue-chip heroes, such as the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, back under the studio's control. Already, fans are geeking out about next year's Deadpool 3, which unites Ryan Reynolds, the Merc with a Mouth, and Hugh Jackman's Wolverine in a reboot of the Fantastic Four, slated for sometime in 2025. As a bonus, the Fox editions give Feige an opportunity to reimagine the X-Men franchise, the very property he cut his teeth into on as a young executive at Lauren Schuler Donner's production company. Now that the WGA strike is in the rearview mirror, Marvel has started talking to the writers about bringing the X-Men into the MCU fold. While Feige re-collaborates, the rest of the industry is anxiously hoping that Marvel's best days are not behind it. Finishing up here, guys, quote, "Writing the Marvel obituary would be ill-advised," says Jason Squire, professor at USC's School of Cinematic Arts and host of the Movie Business podcast. Kevin Feige is the Babe Ruth of the movie executives, and Marvel has the most profitable track record in movie history. No question. So there it is, guys. I know that was a lot to unravel there, but look, going into how you can fix things, we kind of talked about it there in a little bit of that last section. It's time to bring in the X-Men. Fans have been wanting for it. Hell, it was even teased in one of the episodes of She-Hulk.
Oh, and when are we getting the X-Men?
Like, Kevin Feige and the MCU, they understand this. They know the fans want the X-Men. That might be a nice, easy fix, at least to kind of jumpstart things again. Slowly move them in, add them into the next phase, bring in a little bit of Fantastic Four, and take your time with things. I think another solution that they might want to go ahead and take a look at is slowing their roll whenever it comes to these TV series on Disney+. It's definitely true. Content saturation does exist. You know, a lot of people think that it doesn't, but I certainly, for myself, surely think so. You know, it's one thing sitting back in your house watching TV at your leisure, but it's another thing to have too much content. But also, you got to keep in mind, you don't want to wait too long between shows either. You know, I mean, look at the example of Stranger Things. You know, between season 3 and season 4, we had a long wait. Granted, it blew up, but there were a lot of fans that were complaining, where is Stranger Things season 4? Moving forward, guys, it's going to be very, very interesting to see exactly what happens with the MCU. Will it recover from this? I think it will. They just need to go ahead and take their time with things. Whenever it comes down to the VFX and all the projects that they're working on, make sure they're giving their workers a lot of time to work on it, not rushing deadlines, so they can get things done right the first time around. Because, like I said, when you rush things, that's when things start to look like crap, the product doesn't look good, your audience is noticing. You need to take your time, not too much time, but you need to take your time to get the thing done right. Very curious to hear your thoughts on this, guys. I know this was a long video. I wanted to break down every single angle of this article and give you my thoughts along the way. So let me know your thoughts on the state of the MCU right now down in the comment section below. I would love to hear from you guys on this. We'll be talking about this, of course, in future countdown and watch parties within the MCU. So you definitely want to make sure you guys keep it locked right here on the weekly wrap up. Smash the like button on this video, share it out to the masses, let them know what the deal is whenever it comes down to the state of the MCU. Of course, you can keep it locked right here for further updates. Until then, I'm your host, A to the P, Albert Perkins, and we will see you in the next video. Until then, and as always, peace.